Welcome to another episode of 300 Voices in 300 Days. I'm your host, Tyrone Darton, for TAN TV, the African American Network. I'm here with one of our 300 guests, one of our 300 voices, I should say, Miss Antoinette Franklin. We're going to give her about 30 seconds to introduce herself. She's a poet, she's an author, and an educator, but we're going to let her tell us about herself real quick, and then we're going to jump right into the interview.
Okay, I'm going to tell you some things about me. I'm a native of San Antonio, Texas, lived here all my life. I teach at Lackland Air Force Base, and I'm retiring in December. And I teach English as a second language to all the international students who come from all over the world. I've been a poet and been writing ever since I was 6 years old. My mother asked me one time if I had copied something out of a book, and I told her no, I didn't. There are 10 books of poetry on Amazon.com. And I've done quite a number of different things in the city. I try to continue to teach and to work. I teach a creative writing class at the Carver Library. And I've done that since 2009. So that's a little, and I have a daughter and my sister and brother.
Wow. So that's a lot. And congratulations for all you've accomplished. And congratulations on your soon-to-be retirement.
Yeah, that's good.
I know that's one thing that we all look forward to.
Oh, and I did forget I'm a doctoral student. I'm at the University of Incarnate Word.
Wow.
And I hopefully will be graduating in 2018.
Excellent. So there's a lot of information to cover. Just real briefly, 300 Voices in 300 Days. So our city of San Antonio is celebrating the tricentennial, 300 years from basically when our city was founded.
Right.
But you know, in conjunction with that, the African American Network, TAN TV, we did not want this celebration of 300 years of this city to go by without sharing the many contributions African Americans have made that we're contributing now and that we will contribute in the future, that has made this city such a wonderful place to live, to grow and raise our families, and to just speak highly of and celebrate. With that being said, we've had over 100 voices come through, and you're one of them. So before we get too far into the interview, let me ask you this question. Why do you think it's important that with this 300 voices and this tricentennial, that we share our voice?
Our voice is very important because the city of San Antonio has grown so much because of the African American population.
I agree.
My family, like I said, I've lived here all my life. We attended Holy Redeemer Catholic School. That was one of the black schools we could go to. My parents went to Wheatley. All of my family went to Wheatley. And the contributions were just wonderful. When I think about, you know, we were in a school that taught us how to love ourselves and take care of ourselves and be part of the community and be proud of who we were and to make sure we were doing the best that we could. We had down Commerce Street and Hackberry Street. Those were the black community areas. You had black theaters. We had pharmacists, and we had doctors, and we had many people that were prominent here. Even though we lived on the east side of San Antonio, they were doing a lot of important type things. You know, we had ministers, we had teachers. Everybody here was a community. Especially with the Wheatley community. I was able to attend one of my mother's graduation, the group, they were having a reunion, and she had to go to work, but she wasn't going to be able to go. And I said, Mama, those people don't really bother with me. She said, oh, they will. And it was just like being with family.
Wow.
You know, so that was wonderful. And that still happens, even though many of the people have died and moved on or whatever, but they still keep in communication with one another.
Wow. So you basically open up the door for so many different topics and of conversation that we can have. Two things. First thing that I want to speak to is education.
Right.
So obviously, you know, we've all been educated on a primary and secondary level, from elementary up to high school. You know, some go to college, some don't. Obviously, you did. But then you became an educator, and even right now, teaching ESL over at Lackland. But then now you're back in education, being a student, pursuing your doctoral degree. How important, from your perspective, is education for the progress of African Americans today?
They have to have an education. You cannot get any place without it. And my parents, that's all they focused on was education. Make sure you get an education. You have to have something to fall back on. And what I'm teaching my students now, when I talk to them, when you go to school, please get you some teaching certification because you don't know what type of job you may be able to get, but at least they'll always need a teacher.
Yes.
And I didn't want to be a teacher. That was not one of my things. I wanted to make a lot of money. Ha, 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 right? I worked at Kelly Air Force Base, and Kelly Air Force Base said that they were going to promote everybody if we went back and got our master's degree. So that's what a bunch of African-American people did. But we were not the promotees, okay? The other people were the one that got promoted, which you expected that. When Kelly was getting ready to close, we heard about how it was going to no longer be there. And, I worked for these people for 18 years. I was like, what am I going to do? So after I stopped crying, my brother-in-law called me one day. He said, what are you going to do? I said, well, I've already researched and tried to get into school. I've gotten a second master's. And if I can, teach, they always need a teacher.
Always.
So education is very important. You have computers, you've got technology, everything is out here. You cannot get any place without it. We have wonderful basketball players, football players, but not everybody is in that athletic tradition. And you've got to have something to fall back on.
You do.
And after after I got the second master's, I was able to go over to Lackland Air Force Base. And then that's when, and I really love teaching. It's a wonderful, eventful, motivating type thing. But when you see that light bulb go on for your students, because they're looking at you like, I don't understand what you're talking about. You're crazy. But when that light bulb goes on, that's a big thing for them.
Yes.
And I have encouraged many of my students, please go and be teachers.
Yes.
You're going to be a teacher. You're teaching someone as it is.
Yes.
And we are all role models. I remember what Barkley said one time. He didn't want to be a role model. And I thought, regardless, somebody's always watching you.
Always.
If you do the wrong thing, then they'll do that. If you do the right thing, then they'll follow behind you. And why not go ahead and do the right thing? Because somebody, your cousin, your niece, your nephew, one of the neighbors down the street, they're looking at you. And education is so very, very important. I've taught GED. And because the students did not get it, it really is hurtful for them because many of them had got good jobs and they were told, if you do not get that, then you will lose your job. And that's unfortunate. You got to eat, you got to pay your bills, and you need an education.
Those are necessities.
That's it, right?
We got to have those. So the other thing in listening to you was you didn't name any people, but you talked about, Blacks in theater and Blacks in business and, all these different layers. Let's put some names to these people because I'm 38 and I'm 38 years old. So there's only so far back I can go.
I do know. I understand.
And I know our communities have changed.
Right, it has.
So help our viewers connect the dots.
Well, you think about George Washington Carver was one of the big people here, and he was Mr. Sutton, A.C. Sutton's godfather.
Wow.
And he taught him about how to work in the farm, how to grow things. Now, that's a big thing. You think about Myra Davis Hemings. She was wonderful. She was outstanding, intelligent. She's a Delta, which I am.
And it's the Hemings house.
This is the Hemings Resource Center.
Hemings
she
Resource
taught
Center.
at Wheatley High School. And she was a before her time. She was an actress. She was a teacher. And she taught the students. This is a lady told me one time that Mrs. Hemings told her students to make sure that they read the Bible every day, to thank God every day. Nowadays, we can't talk about God, but that was what the teaching process was.
Yes.
And she told them to read a poem. Do something positive to start your day off. You think about all of the Coach Carroll, he taught over at Wheatley. All of these people that you see the names, maybe know the faces or anything. And that's part of learning. I love history. History and English and science were my favorite. Don't like math, but I did it. It's not my favorite. But you learn, I had to learn because I taught GED. And I had told my mother when I first got the job, I said, I don't think I'm going to take this job because I don't like math. She said, honey, you're going to do a very good job. She was always very motivating, very optimistic. And I found really, really simple books so I could teach myself, so I could teach the students. So it's a method that you do something and you're learning something every day that you're out there. When you think about all of the people that have gone on, when you go to the cemetery, all of that knowledge is gone.
Yes.
And we need to pass forth what we used to do and who we used to be and be proud of that. You know, my brothers that are running around with the pants hanging down past, and, you know, the first thing that the policemen are going to do, they're going to pick you up, and then your whole life is over completely. You got young ladies who shows everything but Christmas, and they don't know what's happening one way or the other. That's not where it's going to come from. You know, we lived in the church. You know, we're Catholic. My grandmother was Methodist, and my father was. So we went to church all the time. And this is something we need to get back to. We need to go to church. We need to get our education. And we're putting forth something. What are you going to leave for all of these people behind you? What's going to happen?
Legacy.
You know, you were leaving a legacy for them, you know. And I teach my daughter, you got to learn something. You know, she told me one time she was too stupid. I said, no, you're not stupid. I don't have any stupid children. And I teach that to the students. You're not stupid. You have a different learning process.
Yeah, my grandmother used to say, God don't make no jump.
Oh, you don't.
So
and you have to know that.
You got to know that. So you mentioned you should be closing in on your PhD.
Yeah.
Before we close, because the education is important.
It's important.
Kind of speak towards that and how you're going to use that, and we'll end there.
Okay. With the PhD, I had wanted to do it, and then I went and registered, and then my daughter got sick, and she was real sick, so I backed out. And I think I did that one or two more times. And then I decided, I had a friend, and he told me to, you know, go ahead and get it. Those 2 masters are fine, but you need to have an education. Get that further behind you. I'm planning on teaching and doing some more evaluation and research when I complete this. It's in leadership, organizational leadership.
Okay.
And with the things that I've done now, I'm planning to continue to do those same type of things. Maybe be encouraging, maybe be a motivational speaker or something. But I do have a book that's coming out.
Okay.
We have gathered, there are 13 people who already have their PhDs, and I'm the doctoral student. But we celebrated 16 African-American men in 2011 who have their PhDs. And we did the same thing for 19 African-American sisters. So that was a wonderful type thing. And if we can continue to encourage, and many of those people put how their process was, what they did, it's very difficult because they make it difficult. They don't want you there, first of all, because of your skin tone. You have to just get there and continue. You know, continue to do it, be there, and that's what I'm hoping to be a motivating factor for people to, especially for my sisters and especially for my brothers. I want them to be the best, you know, learn something every day. Do something good for yourself.
Excellent. And I'm definitely motivated. I'm 2 years completed with my doctoral program.
Okay.
So I'm right behind you.
All right, let's go for it.
But you've motivated me to keep pushing.
Well, good.
And
good.
Hopefully maybe in the future we can work on some projects and get some research together.
That sounds good.
I want to thank you for being one of our 300 voices.
Thank you so very much.
And hopefully our audience was as blessed as I was.
I hope so.
So again, thank you. I've been Tyrone Darden, your host for 300 Voices in 300 Days. This is the African American Network, TAN TV. Hope to see you soon.